What's up, YouTube community? Thanks for joining us here live on our first live show. We're talking Austrian Grand Prix recap.
Live from the paddock.
Let's rock.
We're supporting the McLaren guys today because Lando was able to hold it down and make sure if you want some merch, we got some shirts in stock. They look pretty dope and they're nice lightweight material. We're talking about a couple different things today, though. We're talking about fantasy updates. If you've been playing fantasy with us, we've been having a blast. We're talking about track limits and how much a disaster that was this weekend at the Red Bull Ring. We're going to talk about Lewis, Hamilton, and McLaren. So lots of stuff, and I'm sure we'll get sidetracked as well.
We always do.
Yeah.
We always do. Let me just adjust this so little.
First time I heard that. Well, yeah, fantasy. I mean, I felt like I did really well in fantasy. I'll start there. I ended up using the 3x chip on Max, which at the Red Bull Ring, Red Bull car's been killing it. That was kind of like a no-brainer for me, I thought.
No-brainer.
And then I had Alonso as my my DRS unit. My team was Max, Alonso, George Russell, and Yuki. Who's another guy? I'm missing one.
Was it K-Mag or
I might have.
Hulkenberg, maybe?
I think I had K-Mag because my team was too poor to afford it. No, I got Yuki. I'll look it up. And then I've been sticking with the same team the entire year, which is Red Bull and Aston Martin. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You know what I have, and I don't even. Yeah.
I was checking things out because I think I scored the most points.
How many did you get?
I had I
can look it up right now.
You had like 430, I think, and I had like 450.
There you
go. I was like only 5, or like you had like 435 and I had like 440. I think I was like 5 points ahead. You scored a ton too. So I also put on a chip.
Albon. I had Albon.
Albon, okay. I put on a chip. So I had the limitless chip, which means that I can spend as much money as I want, no cost cap. And I think you can change as many times as you want driver lineup or team lineup. But all of those have to be locked in before qualifying anyway. So there's no changes after qualifying on I think there's one chip that you can do that. I forget which one it's called, but
I had more points than you. You had 435. I did 448.
Oh, overall, like the whole weekend?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So. And then total points. Well, I mean, you're still kicking my ass in fantasy, but you have 2753 and I'm back to 2564. So we got a little bit of work to do, but
catching up.
I did move up 2 spots,
beating
Reina. So that just makes me the man of the house again. I was getting
about time. This is the first time he's been leading in his household all these season.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting.
Good. It only took me 6 months, but
hey, better late than never.
You got to supporting equal rights.
That's right. I think I'm now like 9 points behind second place or something. So I'm steadily creeping up.
Grinding. We're grinding.
We're grinding. It's it's a long season. What was this race 10?
Yeah, because
or 11, or technically
did we get
11.
1 or 2 get canceled?
1 got canceled.
So this should have been 11.
I think this was 11. I've just been calling it race 11, and just 1 was canceled.
Yeah.
So, guys. Overall, I think the race has been really good. A lot of on-track passes, a lot of excitement. Any sprint race weekend always just brings extra excitement. A lot more things to cover, especially now this year. There's 2 qualifying instead of the sprint race finish being the qualifying order for the race. There's now 2 qualifying.
Yeah, I still am not a fan of that because I feel like what's the point of doing a sprint race? I mean, at that point, it's just to divvy out extra points.
Yeah, no, I agree. I liked it better last year where that order set the.
Yeah, and that's what it should be.
I mean, that worked better, but
I get the danger, I guess, of it is because they're like, oh, these guys are going to send it. Maybe the backup grid guys might try to send it a little more because they know I can hold somebody off for 10 laps versus 70 laps. I'm just not a huge fan of this format. I think I'm cool with the sprint races. I think it makes it definitely more exciting, but just take out that extra qualifier because it's like there's no point.
I agree. I agree with you. I liked giving them just 1 more practice before 2.
Because they took away practice, right, and just did a qualifier.
So as you get 1 practice, and then qualifying, sprint race, and then the race.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do want to talk about something about the race. So Max has got a massive lead, right? He comes in second to last lap, swap out his tires so he could do a flyer, and then turn up and just and get that extra point, right? When he doesn't need it, But what's actually pretty wild to me, right, is that whoever has it could be Lewis has the point or has the fast lap. It could be just Checo, Alonso, whomever. And he comes in to do that. And that's just wild to me how much confidence he has. And just like, oh, yeah, I can squeeze out that much more out of the car. Because I know, and it's not even the same thing, but I know when I play the game, like if I'm on a heater, like I'm going for like, I'm sending it and I'm like on the very edge. And it's like how he's that good. Like mad respect to Max and everybody that does it, right? Like Valtteri's done it. Max has done it. Sergio's done it. Alonso's done it. Like that you could crank it up that
Lewis, but he's done it.
That next little notch. You crank that extra little notch just to get that extra point, which is mind-boggling to me because you think like they're on the edge majority of the time.
I think at that point it comes down to a lot more logistics of the thing because okay, if you one, he just has enough time to pit. Like that in itself, like he's got a 24-second lead, so it's like a no-brainer, right? He does one little like warm up right into a heater. So you're on soft tires at that point, so they're going to be automatically faster.
Right.
And your fuel is low. Is like the last lap of the race, especially you have like the lowest amount of fuel. So the lowest amount of weight, that's why it's so much easier too. So I don't know that they don't have to push a fastest lap on the very last lap with brand new fresh soft tires is a little bit easier than let's say in the middle of the race on like semi-worn or even let's say new mediums with like a half a tank.
Which that makes sense. The car's going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit more agile, well, way more, right? It's not going to be nearly as hard. And then you're on fresh tires, so you definitely know that boundary to push till.
Because didn't they say like a kilogram or something can be like 1 second or?
Yeah, I think that when they were talking about how much weight like the driver is, like say me driving at being 200 pounds versus Max probably like $140.
Yeah,
and it's like I'm naturally going to be at a disadvantage because I'm a bigger guy. Actually, we should look up who's the tallest driver.
I think Ocon's actually the tallest.
Okay, yeah, he's a string bean though. He's like I still think with how tall
he might not be like the heaviest.
No, yeah, he's like the tallest, but he's probably weighs like $135.
And actually, I think Pierre's pretty tall too.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Yuki's the smallest.
Dude, Yuki should be like a ninja on the track.
I know. I think that car's just not performing very well this year, honestly.
Speaking of Yuki, and we can transition into our next topic, is he's driving around in 18th place, and they decide to give him a 10-second penalty because he hit track limits, which I get it. You hit track limits, whatever. But at that point, like, why are you giving Yuki that is not in contention for anything? It's just like a waste of a penalty, I feel like, and you guys are just doing it to be a dick.
Yeah, I think what it really comes down to in this season specifically is prior seasons, everybody was complaining about the inconsistency in like track limit point delivery, like penalties, right? And so now this season, we're seeing everybody across the board just getting a lot of penalties. And so it's annoying, but I applaud the effort to at least make things consistent. Personally, like I don't necessarily like it. I think, we had a group chat going on and somebody in our chat mentioned how it would be much better if the track just bit you in the ass. And I agree. I think that would be great, right? High curbs to force you to not go off, or like gravel right off the side it does force you to
be more accurate.
Yeah, you get penalized by the track versus the stewards having to go and be like, oh, well, you came over the limits, because then we also saw all of the drivers trying to call everybody else out that they're following.
They're trying to police each other.
And it's just focus on racing, focus on driving, and I get it. It's all trying to be political and now without any of the teams being able to talk to the FIA during the race, you hear them talking about it to their race engineer, and because FIA is listening to all of their radio transmissions, they just can't talk to the FIA directly. So
that's their workaround. Is they're just trying to like, oh, so and so did this.
Yep. Oh, just calling them out on all the stuff. And I get it. Like, there's a lot of money in this sport, so even just one place makes a lot of difference. But it just kind of takes some of the like enjoyment out of watching it when everybody is like worried about just policing everybody else instead of like, okay, well, how can I just get a faster time? How can I improve more?
Yeah, or they shouldn't. Maybe it just goes down to everybody gets their penalty served at the end. Like,
I mean, that ended up kind of being how it was this race, and then the whole top 10 order just completely shifted around.
Lewis did serve his 5 seconds.
He did, right? But then he got another 5 seconds later on.
I didn't see the second one.
Because he had a 10-second total overall.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that dropped him down behind George Russell.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't hear the second one.
Because then Sainz got 2 penalties as well.
Okay.
And that dropped him from 4th all the way to 6th.
Yeah.
So he was definitely the biggest loser out of that whole deal.
For sure. And I just think, because it's like if you don't know that penalty's coming and you're just driving your race, and like if you keep messing up and it's like, yeah, I got 20 seconds worth of penalties, like I probably should have been more cognizant of that. Yeah, your team can tell you like, hey, watch it, you're cutting it close in that corner. Because everybody can see it, right? They have the screen going and they can watch, oh yeah, Max is getting close in this corner. They need to be more cognizant of it, but don't be like, oh yeah, hey, you got a penalty, we're going to serve it now or whatever. It's just like drive the race and drive the car, and you get to the end of the race like, shit, I got 30 seconds worth of penalties because I was driving like a dickhead trying to squeeze that. Yeah, I was cranking off heaters, but yeah, you're cutting, by the time you accumulate that, you're cutting half the corner out of the race. So I think that would almost make it a little bit better, because then you don't have to worry about Lewis crying or Lando crying or whoever. I think anytime there was a battle, the driver that got past was like, oh, well, I just watched him blow that corner. I just watched him go out way over the line in that corner. It's like, and then when you look at the screen, like, yeah, sometimes they're close. Sometimes it's very obvious they're both off. Yeah. And there's other times, like, I remember watching, like, Lewis, like, oh, yeah, he totally blew that. And I was, like, watching the line. I was like, he wasn't even that far over. Like, calm down, Lewis. And Lando did the same thing. Yeah. I think every driver that complained, there was, like, only, like, 2 that – there was, like, a lot of drivers complaining about it.
Well, it seemed like Lando started on Lewis, and then when Lewis got penalized, then he was – I think kind of pissed and was like, well, fine, then I'm going to call everybody else out too. Like if they're dishing out penalties, and then it just was like this big domino effect. Everybody starts doing it.
Yeah. Like, and then Lewis is trying to blame his lack of talent in the corner in turn 10. Yeah. His lack of like being able to stay on there on the car. He's like, and then even Toto's trying. He's like, yeah, we get it. The car sucks. Like, don't defend him. Like, he's the driver. He should fucking keep this shit in the track. Like,
well, yeah. But also, like, if Checo was to say it was the car, well, okay, well, Max didn't do it.
Exactly. No, it's
like George. Okay, well, George, I don't think got any. He maybe got one. I'm not sure. I'd have to look again. But so it's like, look, you have to. And Lewis is good enough to know, how to fucking drive a car, even if it's shit.
There's 19 other guys that are going around the same exact corner as you. You shouldn't like, it's not your job.
And he wasn't the only one. Like, I think there was 8 or
half the field.
8 or 10 drivers, I think, all got penalties for track limits. So
they don't hear it, or he's not hearing them being like, oh yeah, he's like, did so-and-so get a penalty? Like, that's not your job. Like, and it's actually kind of
racing.
This comes to I was watching motocross from this weekend, right? Totally different sport, not even the same thing, but a lot of riders when they race will look around and they're looking behind them because they hear somebody behind them, right? And you even see it with the drivers, like, oh, they're checking their mirrors all the time. It's like, no, just focus on driving ahead. Like, yes, there's a little bit of defense involved in it, but focus on driving ahead, right? Ty Masterpool, amateur or privateer guy, no factory team, literally has a factory guy, 2 factory guys breathing down his neck for 20 minutes of this moto. And he looked behind him once in a span of probably 18 minutes of them, like, riding his ass. And you know that they can see, or he can hear them. Like, he can hear them. There's one point where they were almost touching wheels in a corner and he wasn't even looking back. It's just like, I applaud him because it's like, hey, dude, like, you're so focused on like the task at hand, like pushing forward. Like, if you're looking behind you, you're going slower because you have to keep the throttle twisted or the gas on. Yeah. You're not going to see what's coming. So that's what it comes down to too, right? Don't worry about everybody else. Just keep driving.
I think there's a different level of control on motocross that you have to worry about.
Yeah. Cognizant versus it's like driving down the freeway.
Like F1's crazy, right? There's a lot that they have to do, but you're also in a 4-wheel stable car, not like if I turn my head, the whole bike is going to change. And then you have like a whoop section, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, yes, it's just different, right? But I agree in the fact that like focus on your race and try and improve your times. That's how you become a better racer. I mean, look at Max. Do you think Max he didn't give a shit? Granted, he's out in the fucking lead, like, Princess just chilling. But
shit, I was just supposed to say something about penalties. What were we? Fuck, there's some. What I thought, the penalties, the policing was them trying to police each other was kind of stupid.
Yeah.
What? God damn it! I was texting Zach something about this. Me and Zach were talking about. Lando was driving really well, shocking, but I know he does really well there too. So That's not a surprise there, but it was a surprise to see how far their car has come and where they will. That's where they should have been probably at the beginning of the year, I think.
Yeah.
And
then
battling with the best.
We also saw the difference between the new spec car, right? Just like Williams in the previous race, how Albon was miles ahead of Sargent because of the new upgrades, just being able to test and see if the upgrades are actually working. Same thing McLaren did this weekend. Piastri was basically last, really far down, and Lando's way up there. I think it is. I like to see that because I think as a team standpoint, especially with the cost cap now, they're having to be a lot more strategic about the upgrades that they bring. So they're not going to, make two cars the same and then see how they do. Because if they don't perform as well, then they're back to the drawing board and they're spending a lot more money.
For sure.
But it's interesting, right? It kind of sucks for that second driver.
Yeah, at the end of the day, though, too, like Piastri, I think is overhyped. I don't think he's doing the best out of the rookies for sure.
Yeah.
But on the same token, like he's not going to be in Lando's position, which actually, it's funny. Both teams gave the more experienced driver the setup, and the younger guys, there's like, yeah, you can get fucked basically. So they basically said, hey, just drive the car and figure it out, and then. Albon drove amazing last week in Canada or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, even he qualified even Q3, this race too. Like he's really stepping it up. I think Williams as a team is just developing their car really well. I think the changes that they made with team principles and things is really paying off for them.
I think let's just talk about disappointments of the year. De Vries is way overhyped. He's absolute like dog shit.
I gotta say, I think maybe I'm the most disappointed because I followed him a little bit through, Formula E and being a Mercedes driver. And he performed really well. So I had high expectations to be like, oh yeah, look, like Mercedes, like Academy is doing really well. And he's just not performing. And in his defense, I don't think the car's good. I think the car's shit, but still, like he's really not performing super well. I know they're talking about replacing him with Honey Badger. I almost feel bad for Danny Rick because I think he's going to be able to extract probably more than Yuki can out of that car.
I'd agree.
But I don't think the car is really going to show much. And I don't know if they kind of aren't developing it as much because it's transitioning in to be another team.
Maybe they don't want to spend the money and they're just trying to pinch the pennies, which they're going to sell the team off, right? But
yeah.
The one thing I will say though is what I'm really confused about. If you watch 4 seasons, whatever you want to call it, you watch Drive to Survive. How fast did they shit can Albon out of Red Bull?
Oh,
How fast did they
like
shit can
3
Pierre?
races, right?
Yeah.
Like same, like
maybe half a season. So now I'm seeing rumors that Danny Rick could take De Vries' place next year in 2024. I'm like, why are we waiting that long? You guys are notorious for pulling guys mid-season. So like, why are we waiting that long? So I'm a little fired up about that. Like, pull him out now. You said you need to figure it out.
Yeah.
You haven't figured it out. And this is nothing against De Vries. Like maybe, yeah, it's probably true. The card probably sucks, but at the same time, like you're dealt with the cards, right? And like get on the sim more, do something. I don't know what you need to do to figure it out, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they put him in a Williams, if he would be better in a Williams.
Maybe. I mean, Mercedes chassis and stuff too, I'm not sure. Also, it's interesting to see. So like is it their team principal? AlphaTauri's team principal is going to be gone next year too.
I think so. So he probably just doesn't.
So maybe he just says,
he's just like checked out. He's like, whatever, I don't care.
Oh, the team's getting dissolved.
Let the place burn.
It's so political. It does just pique my curiosity to see if there's something going on there.
I don't know I can't remember if it was me and you texting or if it was me and Zach, but he was saying like, oh, Danny Rick goes to AlphaTauri. They'll just put it'll be a Red Bull car with AlphaTauri graphics. Which I don't know why you wouldn't have done that from the get-go.
Well,
but
it should be. They can't technically share secrets, even though they're sister team.
The farm team or whatever.
Yeah, so they can't be like, oh, okay, this is the drawing plan and we make the same car. Like they have to actually develop their own car.
I find that very hard to believe, though, that nobody in either organization has been like, oh, dude, yeah, hey, these side pods are pretty wicked. You should check them out.
Well, we're
just looking at it.
But that's the thing, right?
Take pictures of it.
Look at what Aston Martin's doing.
Yeah, they're ripping everybody off.
They're taking, and granted, they're figuring out how to make different things work together, which is also a engineering feat.
Yeah.
Because that's, I mean, most of the time you develop a car in one direction,
Mhm.
right? And then everything kind of goes into that. I mean, look at Mercedes at the fucking start, even last
Oh,
year,
yeah.
right? Like they just tried to develop everything around those side pods, and it just needed to be canned a lot earlier. Now you have Lewis and whoever else trying to stop Red Bull's growth, which, you know what, they maybe wouldn't be as far ahead of you if you
Would have got it right the first time around.
or even
Or
saw
backed
it
it up,
didn't work
like, yeah.
and changed it immediately instead of waiting an entire season and part of this season to try and keep with that same plan.
Yeah, if
you
you would have
know.
caught that 6 months, like this time last year, you maybe could be getting closer to the tails, because obviously the upgrades they brought the last 2, 3, 4 races have been significantly
They're
improved.
definitely
Their car
improving,
is like
right?
now a top 10. Like before, you would have told me, I'm like, I don't know if Mercedes is a top 10 car.
Well,
now it's like, yeah, they'll be a 10 through 5 car all day long
for sure, and they're
depending
being
on the track.
consistent generally
Yeah.
too, right? Like I know both of them have had shitty qualifying the last couple weekends. Like I think this weekend it was George, last weekend it was Lewis.
You know
Or
who has
maybe it was
really weird
sprint
qualifying? Is Haas.
I was gonna say Hulkenberg
Always out
qualifying.
qualifies K-Mag, but then K-Mag just gets down in the race, which blows my mind, because every time I'm thinking fantasy, I'm like, who do I pick? I'm like,
Yeah.
I know Nico's gonna kill it in qualifying, and he's been getting a Q3 like every race almost.
I mean,
I think he has missed it like twice.
Barring that one penalty,
Mhm.
he qualified second essentially.
Yep.
Right? Like that's
Dude, he got
huge
robbed
last
on that.
weekend. I agree.
So robbed.
The problem is they're having really good qualifying, especially for Nico, but then their race pace just isn't, right? Like, and so part of that is thinking about tire degradation, things like that, to where it's like, okay, we can put in one really fast heater, but then over the span of a race, we're burning through a lot more tires, which is taking a lot more time, and things like that. And it could be driver like concentration too, right? Like some people are really good for one lap, Charles Leclerc, and then you put it through the course of a race, and
mental
you can't. Yeah, it's like you're not putting a heater on for 70 laps, but you still have to stay focused for that amount of time, and it's a lot, right? I don't think it's like that bad, but and again, different than motocross, where you have to be, like you're feeling every little rhythm section.
Yeah.
Where like, okay, everything's a little bit more consistent in the car, but everything's way faster.
Yes, for
so
sure.
Everything happens faster, and you have to, like, your reaction times are going to change based off of your tires, based off of the weight of the car, which is the fuel burn off, and so all those factors start changing the car's performance throughout the race.
Right, like I'm sure at the end of that first stint of tires, right, like towards the end of it, you're braking now. Instead of braking at the 100-meter, you're braking like 10 feet before that, just because, or you're coasting and then braking, or because the tire's going to slide more. And
it depends, right? Like you're carrying more speed now, so you might have to brake a little earlier, or you can brake similar because you don't have as much weight to slow down either. Yeah, and then the tires, there's a lot of factors I think that people don't consider. Just like, somebody can be like crushing it in the first stint. I know like Lewis, even last year, like I know he had a couple first stints were just like out, like awesome. And then you switch them to the mediums or whatever, and all of a sudden, like, they just couldn't generate the tire heat, and then you're losing a bunch of places, and the whole second stint is just like dog shit.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see how different cars handle just the different tire compounds and stuff throughout the race. And then you add, let's say, rain, or even a night race where the temperatures are cooling off a lot faster. All of those things have an impact on performance.
What do we think about K-Mag or Hulkenberg, like either Haas drivers? You put them in a top-tier team, a Red Bull, a Mercedes, or even I'd say Aston Martin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they are like not top-tier drivers, but could they be a top 5 guy?
I think so.
Because I think K-Mag like obviously shows here the moments of greatness, and Nico's done it in qualifying too. Or they both done it in qualifying, right? And,
yeah.
K-Mag's definitely got his elbows out more times than I could tell you. And held up like the whole field for probably half the race.
I mean, point. You see like all of like the sprint race, he was in second damn near the whole time, and he started getting past, as people started just
dropping
up tires
fuel
better.
and, yeah,
exactly. But I I mean, I thought it was cool to see. Now it doesn't help fantasy because he's not making any points up passing people.
Right.
But just to see him be able to battle and continue, even okay, he's starting to get past and he's able to make, kind of a repass and reposition. And I think that shows a lot of driver craft, like racecraft, and just his ability to be able, because that's difficult when you're in a car that just is not as fast.
Mentally too, you got to deal with that, right? Like you're like,
yeah, it's just a matter of time.
I don't have the equipment to be there.
Yeah.
So it's like I just got to basically be an asshole the entire time.
But I think it can be fun, right? You're like, well, I'm going to battle these guys as long as I can, knowing like it's inevitable essentially. But
no, I think that's
how long can we hold them off? And he held them off damn near like half the race, right?
Yeah, the underdog.
And I think he still ended up getting 6th on the sprint, which is cool.
Right. Like the underdog effect, right? It's just like, dude, like you want that guy to do so good. And like same thing, like referring back to Tire Masterful, privateer guy going against factory guys. He was there. Like he shouldn't have been there as long as he was. He was there until the 23-minute mark in the first moto. And then he had bike problems. And then he got tangled up with somebody else. But it's just like insane that it's like, okay, like give this guy a shot. But I don't know the politics, and like I don't know like will K-Mag ever get a better ride? I don't think so. There's too many young guys coming up. I think K-Mag's unfortunately stuck in the Haas ride.
Well, and this is a sport that really caters to the new people coming in versus some of the olds. Now you have exceptions, right? Like Alonso being able to come back, and even Nico getting a second opportunity now to.
I think Daniel's going to probably end up being one of those guys too.
I think so. Yeah. So you have those select few that are definitely good, but the thing, even let's say Daniel,
they have the whole package though. Because like Daniel, everybody loves Daniel. So the racers want Daniel there. I guarantee you they'd be like, yeah, shit came to Rise. We don't like this guy. Like, we'd rather have Daniel out there. Right?
Yeah, like everybody likes him, even the drivers. Just he's a likable character. Netflix is gonna want him because the ratings are skyrocket, right? Like and F1 is this glamorized sport. So it's not just about being able to drive really well, it's about being marketable.
Yeah,
right. Like you have to be handsome, you have to be fit, you have to be, likable, or not so likable, right? Controversy does.
That's the only thing I'll say. DR has a big nose. That's the only thing going in like against him.
But but the humor, he's got that humor, he's got that vibe.
Oh yeah, that he makes up for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think like, they're trying to cater. Like I know Leclerc's brother, when he comes up, whenever he gets to that point, like he'll probably get a ride somewhere, right? Good looking guy. He has shown some results, not everything, but he's done well. So there's certain people that you're wondering like, okay, like when is that era going to stop? Like, oh yeah, these young up and coming guys. Cause like right now the young guys are not doing anybody any justice. Like the young guys are on the struggle.
I agree. So I'm glad you said that. Cause I was just having that same thought. Even let's look at Leclerc. Right, like steps into a Ferrari now. There's some controversy that maybe it's Ferrari that's not performing as well either. And granted, he's been fairly consistent, but we see lots of brilliance from him, and then also lots of
mistakes. Like there's definitely been like all last year, like he should have been in the title hunt like all year long, and he threw away that title. It wasn't necessarily. Yes, there was probably like 3 instances you could have said, oh yeah, Ferrari made a bad call on strategy. But you have to deal with what you're dealt, right?
I mean, if you're crashing every other race, you can't win a championship like
Was it the French GP where he just spun out on his own and like fuck the car?
I think so, yeah.
So it's like that wasn't on Ferrari, that was on you, dog.
Yeah.
Like, and I get it. Maybe you're just waiting for something to happen. As much as I
know they did have some reliability issues last year. Yeah. The Ferraris, like some engine stuff, even Sainz and Leclerc both had engine shit. They don't have that this year. Right, like they're definitely their reliability's gotten a lot better.
Even the principal said though, he's like, even if we hire Max or Lewis, and as much as we'd love to, we got to fix our problems. Mm-hmm. Like it's not, that's not going to be your fix all. And I mean that's a great point, but at the same time, I do see Lewis could potentially jump ship. Obviously, Mac's not going to go anywhere. His car's great. Like, why would he leave? There's no reason for him to leave, right? Unless they offered him like some outrageous amount of money. No, and I don't even.
Red Bull's already paying him more than any other driver,
right? So then I think the only Peterson I could see Ferrari like really going after would be Lewis, because his skill and his talent. He's got the background, or he's got the resume for it.
Yeah.
So he goes there. Maybe they fix their shit in the offseason going into night, or like this season gets really well.
What if Daniel goes into Ferrari?
Dude, I don't know how I never thought about that until you just said that.
Yeah,
That
that's
would
this kind
be-
of thing now. What perfect? I would love to see Daniel in a Ferrari
Dude, that would be super sick.
because
I
he's
don't-
not going anywhere in AlphaTauri. I'm sorry.
No,
He's
for
not.
sure. Like the only thing he might be able to do is like maybe they stick him in AlphaTauri as like a time being to like appease him, and then
Yeah, but then
they
what
wait till
happens?
Checo fucks
pick
off,
up
and then
another then they throw in another young guy because that's what they do.
yeah, they do
It
like
was
the Red Bull
a
Academy.
miracle that they picked Checo to be the second driver.
No,
Honestly.
for sure.
And I think it's because they just didn't have anybody quite ready in their young driver lineup.
No, they're just trying to meet their diversity quota.
God. Deleted channels off. First live.
I didn't say anything bad.
First live and now.
I didn't say anything bad, but no. Okay, like what do they do?
But-
This right? They put him in an AlphaTauri. Checo's on the struggle bus. Like obviously, speaking of Checo, we could give him some kudos right now. He figured his shit out. Came back from what, 12th, 13th?
Yeah, I mean Checo, I like Checo. He's
I do.
He's a really good driver. And I mean, I was hoping to see him further up in the championship race. You know, he's definitely kind of shit the bed. He didn't make it out of Q3 the last 3 races in a row.
Yeah.
So, but obviously the car's on fire and he's still driving. I mean, I think he's been so far in our era, he's been the best backup driver that Red Bull's had. You know, they won first and second place, or I guess he got third because Max kind of screwed him. But championship, they've consistently won. They're miles ahead of everybody right now. So I mean, as far as continuing to progress for the team, I think he's been a great fit.
I think though, what if they do this right? Checo, say he fixes it, great. Checo fixes it. Hypothetically speaking, though, say he gets a couple good results, but then he goes back to shitting the bed the tail end of this year. They put him on like a PIP performance plan, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, DR, jump in the AlphaTauri for the time being, and then we're gonna move you right back up. And then could you imagine? Like that's the one thing I could like. Maybe this is like way the fuck out there, but like they stick him. They're just appeasing Daniel to get him seat time. They've already said that Daniel's been killing it on the sim, helping them so much with car development. And then they're like, "Hey, go fix this car." Shit, Daniel knows his shit. He's rejuvenated. He's good. Blah 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 blah. And then Checo, you're shit in the bed again later. And then just Honey Badger Right goes right back in. They have the super team. And then Daniel gets like mad credit because he's performing. And then you give him like a year or two, and then he jumps ship and goes to another factory team.
Yeah.
2025 Mercedes.
Yeah.
I did see that somewhere. And I
Oh,
think
you
it
did?
did. No, I did see that somewhere. It was like predictions in 2025. It was like, I think it was George and DR Mercedes. I don't know if Lewis was in the lineup anymore for some reason.
Well, I think if Lewis retires, then that opens up a seat for somebody. I know Mercedes.
It was actually really accurate because it said 2025, and like half the drivers that are where they're at now are at those teams, and like, holy shit, this could be right. So I'm like, imagine like DR goes to Mercedes in like a year and a half.
I think they want to pick up Schumacher.
You think so? They're going to farm him until Lewis basically leaves?
Potentially.
Until Lewis goes to Ferrari? Where else would Lewis go that
so
he could
you
be
imagine
successful at? He's not going back to McLaren.
Lewis and DR both at Ferrari together?
They can't afford that. Well, no, they can afford that. But actually, that'd be pretty wild.
That'd be kind of wild, right?
Do you think
they would clash?
That's what I was just about to say. Do you think they'd be like another Valtteri? It's not going to be the Valtteri and Lewis dynamic that they have.
No.
I think Lewis or Daniel's going to be like, yo, this is my time. You're an old dog. Sit down. Get in line. It's my time to shine. I need a title.
I
You
don't
have
know,
7.
though. Yeah, I don't know.
You can give up 1 title for me, dog. Then they fix the car by 2025.
It could be really interesting. I would be excited to see Ferrari, step it up. And
Mick just gets shafted that whole time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's the case, but maybe was Mick a support guy for Ferrari last year? No, he was in Haas.
He was in Haas.
I thought he was supposed to be like the backup driver for Ferrari at one point.
I don't know. I mean, he's the backup guy at Mercedes right now.
Yeah, no, I know that, but or did he do a test for Ferrari? I don't remember.
Probably. I think he was a Ferrari Academy driver, right? Like that's what got him into Haas and stuff. Even though Mercedes, I don't know. Mercedes has been grooming him, I guess. Like
you see that he's supposed to do an exhibition in his dad's car at Silverstone.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
Whatever it was, hopefully he doesn't cry and crash the thing.
It was his Mercedes car, right?
Yeah.
It's like
I guess it's his dad's Mercedes car. They're going to do it at Silverstone, which will be cool because,
cool.
no, he's not British, but Was he Dutch? German?
German.
I was about to do a lot of bad things right now, but I decided not to.
We're live.
Yeah, we're live. I'm trying not to get
I
canceled.
can't edit this right now, so
maybe we'll do a short later on it or something, or
yeah, we can
behind the
film
scenes.
Yeah,
We do it behind the scenes. Anyways, we kind of talked about Lewis. My biggest gripe about Lewis is this: that he just, when it's not going his way, he just starts crying a lot, and that drives me fucking nuts. Like, dude, you are. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, you are the GOAT of F1, really.
yeah.
Like, between you and Michael, you guys are like easily head to head for like the greatest of all time in F1 at this point.
Yeah.
I think we are seeing the new era of that. Like, Max is the new guy, right? Like, he's obviously very dominant. Yeah. I don't think Max is going to stick around long enough to give a shit unless he wins for basically every day from here on out.
He seems like he doesn't really care. I mean, he says that, but then I'm going to get fastest lap every single time. You know, like, I have to get fastest lap, and
I think he just is like that competitive. That's why he's like, yeah, I'm pulling. We don't need the fastest lap, but I'm pulling in to get it.
Yeah,
like, and just kind of like big dick energy, I guess. He's like
100%.
I'm the guy now.
100%, and that's why I think it's kind of he's playing on, like, he's downplaying the fact that, like, oh, you know, like, winning.
Maybe if he gets to like boring. 5. Maybe if he gets to 5 or 6 titles, maybe then he'll be like, shit, I'm right there. I might as well tie him, like, or I might as well go for it.
Potentially, yeah, I
think it depends on who's coming up too. If there's the next Max, or
I think that's
say
kind of
gets in Mercedes, and then he's competitive with Max. Then, like in 5 years from now, it's like, okay, then maybe Max is like, shit, I don't want to like lose to this now. Like, I beat this guy my whole career. Like, what the hell? So my biggest complaint with Lewis's stature, his accomplishments, easily the most decorated guy on the grid. And probably the most decorated guy we'll see for a long time. Nobody's touched those for a while. For you to complain about shit, it's just like, it's like a bad look. It's just like, Lewis, like, for you to be complaining about this is just so stupid. Yeah. It's like the CEO of a company complaining about shit that's like, you know, it sucks. Like, you just deal with it.
No, I definitely, you know, I'm a Lewis fanboy, but I agree. And it's like, okay, let Toto complain. Right. Like, let the principal, like, that's kind of their job. And I reference to, it's like, you know, in the group chat, like, don't forget, like, all the times that Mercedes was winning and Christian Horner came to the FIA for years to try and get all these rules, right? Like, they can't use DAS system anymore. They can't use, you know, and so it's like, don't forget that all the teams everybody just does this.
That's what's annoying.
Right.
Too.
And so I think it's annoying too. And I do agree with, it's like, Lewis, let the politics be more in the, like, Total Wolf section.
Yeah,
the
boss. Let the boss handle it. The PR guy deal with it.
You know,
the people that are supposed to push the buttons, go let them push the buttons. You don't need to do it. Sit down, shut up. Your job is to drive the damn car with what you got.
Well, and also, like, he had mentioned, like, you guys had said something, right, that he had said, and it was basically about, like, how we shouldn't develop the next year's car. It's like,
don't you should put a time limit on when you start to develop. So if it's August 1st, start August 1st, which that's not my problem. If, say, Red Bull wants to say scratch this year, we're going to start on next year.
Totally.
Like, that's not our problem.
And
that's
I agree, right? Like, I totally agree. Like, there shouldn't be any, if that's how they want to choose to do it, like, kudos to them for being so miles ahead. When Mercedes was doing it, they were able to do that stuff too and stay miles ahead.
Yeah.
Like, just because you guys got your car wrong the fucking first time and you didn't fix it, like, I get it's frustrating, but at some point you kind of got to swallow the pride a little bit and be like, yeah, we fucked up.
Then I think,
you know, I don't know. That's my take.
I think, and then the last thing I'll say too is, like, when Toto jumps on the radio, right, and he's like, we know the car sucks, just drive it, please. It's like, dude, that's like such a bad, that's like, you're the coach's kid, and like, you're like, stop complaining. Like, you're being a bad look.
So spoiled.
Immature, spoiled, like, so many things. And it's just like, dude, like, it's not that I mean, like I said, all due respect to Lewis, like, very decorated, completely most accomplished guy in the motorsport.
Yeah.
But on the same time, like, it makes you look kind of like an idiot.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm the one defending him all the time. I know it's hard. It gets old. So like
for example, like, if we're talking about like when to develop, there's like 3 teams right now that should just scratch this year and start developing for next year. McLaren, AlphaTauri, who else could develop for next year? And Haas is kind of in it, but like not great, but Haas is kind of in it.
I mean,
and Williams is kind of back in it. But those 3, I would say, should just scratch what they're doing and just move on to next year.
Well, and here's the thing too, is like there's not really any big rule changes for next year, right? The next one's like the next big
26?
car change is 26. Yeah. And so, I mean, they could just keep developing this car this season and get it better to where they have a better start next season too.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. I think it's just like you're losing, it sucks. Nobody likes that.
You're like being a sore loser.
To winning, but like, come on.
Like you started at, well, no, he didn't really start at the bottom because he started with McLaren and then he like kicked ass in his first 2 seasons. So it's like he doesn't, I feel like he's just had so much success he doesn't know how to lose, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's always used to being
the guy,
at least competing for the championship, right? Like, yeah. I mean, and he's that good. Like I would say if Mercedes was better, he would be up there, but they're not. And as much as it's an individual driver sport, it's still a team sport. So like you still have the team. And I know that even Valtteri said like, yeah, he's like the first one at the track. He's the last one to leave. Like he is helping to develop the car and everything. And he's always like thanking people, you know, like everybody back to the factory. Like, and I like that he includes everybody in that and acknowledges, which I think is shitty when we have bad press like this go out, because it's like I think that more of him actually is like grateful for everybody and trying to keep moving forward, and some things just get overlooked and highlighted more. But
the one minor argument I have against like it's a team sport for sure, because like if you have a 30-second pit stop, that's obviously not on you. There's nothing you could have done there.
Yeah,
but if you're as great as you are, this goes for anybody. This could be Lando. You can insert Max. You can insert whomever. Like you should be able to extract every ounce out of that car. I get it. There's definitely they've definitely missed the mark if Lewis is this far off the pace.
Right.
But at the same time, like you have a kid that drove an absolute shitbox his entire career and he's competing against you.
Yeah, but I think we're starting to see some of those differences.
Yeah.
Like last year, I think the car was so far off that Lewis was just like,
what do I do with this?
I think he kind of was like riding the season off.
Yeah.
Where you can see this year, like GR's not performing as well as Lewis is overall.
Right. I mean, I don't know what their points are. They're probably like 5 and 6 in points or whatever.
They're close. They're close, but Lewis is edging him out, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. And that's nothing against George Russell. I think he's driving really phenomenal, and I'd like to see him do well too. I think Mercedes is starting to pick it up.
I read your note like 4 times because I'm like, what the hell does it say?
That's McLaren
murder for some reason because it looks like chicken scratch. But McLaren.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so McLaren.
Are we done on that topic?
Yeah, I think.
Are we done ranting about Lewis?
We're done ranting about
Lewis. Like I said, respect for Lewis, but respectfully,
McLaren's bringing a new livery. They're going back to the silver for Silverstone, which is cool. I liked it. I mean, it was kind of back in the like Lewis winning at Mercedes or McLaren days.
One last Lewis comment. How much money do you think McLaren would have to pay Lewis to go back? A shitload.
Dude.
Fuck you money.
Well, you got to remember, like, if he's unhappy with Mercedes, you think he's going to go to McLaren?
Maybe they'll fix it. Maybe McLaren will be great again. Make McLaren great again.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's committed to, like, continuing to try and win at Mercedes. And I think
he's got a bad track record at when the team goes to shit. He hops shit.
Yeah, but he's been there for fucking 8 years.
I'm just saying, like, if the check is big enough from the horse,
I don't know.
He's jumping.
I don't think
jumping.
Well, I do know that he does a lot of stuff off the track, right?
PR stuff.
A lot of PR stuff, and they team up, and I think they even like co-own some different stuff together, him and Mercedes.
Got it.
Where like he's really leading diversity and stuff, right? Just in inclusion all around, dude. You know, it's that time.
Yeah, no diversity. No, it's 2023. We can't assume anything, or we can't assume what you are. Or what's going on.
Well, you know, and so I know, like, I think they've set a whole separate corporation together where like is about creating that
rights and shit, equal rights and all that bullshit.
Yes.
I mean, anyways, we don't need to get into politics. But
anyway, so like, they have other business dealings, and I think he wants to get a bigger check for some of that stuff. So that was the discrepancy that I've seen recently in that.
What debunks like him leaving?
No, it could potentially mean he's leaving because
so
he wants a bigger check, and they're like not wanting to cut it.
So do you think Ferrari's like, yeah, we'll totally support you in all your ventures, blam blam blam, here's your race money and here's your venture money for whatever you want to do?
I don't know.
So I don't know
if they
because like
will.
I don't know if
'Cause I don't know
Ferrari's going to
that-
support that because like
I
they're
don't know that
separate.
there's a
Like
lot
that's
of
not an
other
issue over there. Well, I don't know if it
totally.
is, but I
I
can't
mean,
speak
it's
to
an
that,
issue everywhere, really.
right?
But I
But
think
like, do
it's
they care enough to do that? I guess.
that's what it is. I think Lewis was kind of like it's like if Max was to propose something to Red Bull and Red Bull's
You
like,
don't support me, I'm out.
exactly.
Yeah.
So then Red Bull's like, oh, we'll do whatever the fuck you ask. Like, of course, right? So I think that's kind of Lewis's pull at Mercedes.
Right.
I don't think that a lot of the other teams are going to cater to him in that
Cater
same
to the,
way.
and I say the term bullshit, but like cater to his like demise, I guess, and be like, I need X, Y, and Z to stay.
Mhm.
Even if he was to jump ship, like he's not going to go into Ferrari and be like, or Red Bull or whomever, and be like, I need X, Y, and Z to support my
Yeah.
fun, this,
Well,
that.
just like Max is like, oh, winning's, like I kind of want to do some other stuff. I know Lewis is doing a lot of other stuff out of racing just to maintain like fulfillment, right?
Got it.
Like, okay, but he still is passionate and loves racing, wants to win. I think he wants that 8th title that,
if I was Lewis, the only problem is like, how old is this? 34, 35? Somewhere?
He's 37, I think. 38.
So I'm curious.
He's a little older than me.
How long? When did Seb retire? How old is he? 40?
I think he was in his 40s.
So, and Alonso's in his 40s.
Probably was definitely in his 40s, yeah.
So I'm just trying to think, how long do you think he's going to stay around? A. B, how long are you sharp enough to keep up? Like when is that time when, like, it looks like Alonso, and everybody's different, right? Like we've seen motocross guys go to 45, and it's like mind blowing because that's a pretty young sport and it's very physically demanding. You get hurt a lot. So like, when is like, it seems like Alonso's like getting a second wind, and like if you put him in a Red Bull, I think like he might be able to win. Like, or like he would be able to win, right? Yeah. Like, or you put him back
especially right now, like there's so many variables that go into an athlete's performance, right? And even just being like, if your nutrition's dialed, if your exercise, like everything's dialed in, you still have to have the mental, right? Now, if all that stuff's dialed in, it helps the mental become easier. And then if you're winning, like, there's a lot of variables that go.
You have the confidence, like
and some like a team that supports you and wants to see you grow. Yeah. Like, I mean, look at DR when Max came in, right? He didn't feel supported.
Yes.
Because it was all about like golden child Max.
Yeah.
And that's why he jumped, because he didn't feel like,
well, and then he kind of went on this downward spiral, but like he had to work way harder.
Yeah, it was
and
like
then
his confidence, because one, the car's not as fast, right? The team's not as good, let's say, like
going to Renault, and then
McLaren, and so even if you're extracting the most out of the car and you're driving the wheels off of it, you're just not going to be as high up the grid and in at some level that affects your confidence, right? I mean, look at Lewis last year. I think he didn't really give it. He wasn't fighting. He's fighting way more this year than he was last year.
For sure. Yeah.
Even overtakes of other cars, just kind of like, right? Like
if it's there, it's there.
Yeah. And granted, like, okay, like it can be exhausting to maintain that level of performance, especially when you're not, in the machinery to be able to win.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of variables, and if you get those variables readjusted, I think you can come back and perform, because these guys you got to remember, they're like the pinnacle, right? Like there's 20 drivers in the entire world that get to do this.
Right.
And some of them do it for 20 years because they're just that good.
Yeah.
So like they have
the
that.
Lewis's,
exactly. The Sebs, right? Like even the Schumacher, like it's in their DNA that they're just really good.
How many times did Michael, that sounds weird to call him Michael. How many times did Michael get to like the very bottom of the trough? Like whenever he switched teams, like his team sucked, and then he like made it work, right? And I think maybe that was Mick's problem, is that he was trying to like be like his dad and like, hey, like I'll go to the shit team and I'll make it good. And I don't think he has that yet. Maybe he doesn't have the maturity yet. Maybe he doesn't have the skill, the craft yet. Not that he's incapable of doing it, but it probably made his job so much harder, and that's why he's in the position now. He's a backup driver. He's not.
And
driver.
I think no matter how hard you try and convince yourself that you're not living in your father's shadow, you are. Yeah, because even if you're not comparing yourself to his journey, everybody else is, and so it's really difficult to handle that sort of pressure for,
I'm curious though, like if you say you put him in he didn't get like, not a fair shot, but like he didn't really get a fair shot, right? They put him in shitbox car to begin with. He was in the Haas, like the shit years of Haas.
Yeah.
He didn't get of course he's not going to fucking perform there, because like who's going to give him a ride? And then how long did it take GR and a shit car at Williams and like a couple lucky results to get a factory ride, right? So they never really gave Mick like a really true shot. Like I wonder if they would have put them in an Alpine, even if he would have given like a 1-year deal at Mercedes, or like I'm not saying like he should have gotten there.
Yeah.
But if Mick is as good as he was from F2, because wasn't he a title winner? Didn't he win a title?
Yep.
So like, why wouldn't I don't know what team he drove for in F2. I just
I don't either. But what we do know about F2 is everybody has the same machinery.
Yes.
It just has a different livery, right? But
Yeah.
everything is the same. So if
It's
you really want to get to understand who's the better drivers, but F1's a new level, right? Like, so
For sure.
you can't just be good at driving. You have to be good at developing the car. You have to be good at all these other aspects. And so I think that's what makes, especially Michael, right? I think that's what made him even greater, because of his ability to be able to help a team build the car, right? And I think Lewis is good too, obviously, but even Alonso, right? Like, so
I feel like Alonso,
I think that's what makes those guys even better, is that they do put the extra work instead of just, I'm
here to race later. Yeah, I think Alonso has proven that like he can make a car work. Like we probably don't give Alonso much credit that we should, because even at Alpine he was struggling. He was able to make it. Like he had some good results and he was hyping up his team. Like as much as him and Ocon didn't get together, he was doing the same shit that he does with Stroll now to Ocon. He's like, tell him to defend. Like we need this result. Like, and he's hyping him up too, right?
I think Stroll is just okay playing the little brother.
Yeah.
And accepting the help, because he's getting a lot better because of it. Where I think Ocon wanted to be the big man in the team, and so he fought all of that, and they struggled. And I think I think he's good, but I don't think I think he could have been better if he was more like, all right, let me learn from this veteran, instead of, I don't know, like, fuck you, I'm going to beat you.
Right.
And it's hard. Like you
have to find that balance, right? Like you have to like respect him, but at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, at the end of the day, like I need my driver slot. You don't need your driver slot. Like, and that's with any sport. You want to beat your teammate at the end of the day, because you're securing your paycheck or whatever it is. Yeah. I think, maybe that's why I think Lewis is maybe also a little not as maybe outshined by other drivers like Michael and Alonso. And I feel like you don't see the car development as much with him or even Max, because it's just like you're given the package and they just drive it. Or Red Bull, Max is like the car is built around Max, so they figured out for Max.
That's what we see as spectators, right? Because I know like Valtteri's talked about how much Lewis is in there, and I wouldn't have even known if Valtteri didn't come out and be like, yeah, like actually Lewis outworks everybody. And he even said like, even myself, right? Like he's like, I don't like to admit it, but Lewis was just better,
right? And which is weird though, it's just like when the car was good, Lewis was great. Lewis was unstoppable. But it's like now that the car's not that great, it's like, okay, like, is it that you can't develop it? Or like you just have to ask the question, right? And it's not, and it's just like me playing devil's advocate. Like, can you not get the car to work? Do you not care about the car working? Like, are you already checked out? Like, you're like, fuck Mercedes.
Out.
Like,
I felt like he checked out last season.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I think this season,
I feel like he's a little bit more into it this season.
With the podium, the team's doing better. Mm-hmm. I think he gets a little bit more excited. But then now, like, we're at the halfway point in the year, getting close to it, give or take a race. Are we going to start seeing him kind of check out again? And especially if there's talks, hypothetically, of him going to another team. And then I think also the machinery back then wasn't as much technology baked into it. So like Michael had to really develop a car and like be like, hey, this sucks. Like,
but it was more mechanical, right?
Yes, mechanical.
So you could feel it more than now. Everything's all electronic, and so there is a lot more development in.
There's some feel, but technology. It's like there's only so much feel you're going to get. And I think Alonso has developed, and you see that in that era. I think the era's changed. So Lewis might not get as much shine when it comes to praise when it comes to car development, even though Valtteri said it. And I would say the same thing about Max, but I would say Max is a different animal because he's on the sim like 364 days out of the year when he's not racing, essentially. So it's like we've known that he's a ranked sim racer in the world. Like it's like, okay, like he's developing in a different way. And I think it's just a different area, right? It's like it's the flip phone versus the iPhone, or
and like wind tunnel time versus on track time. Yes. And things like everything's so different. Yeah, it's less mechanical. You're driving a spaceship now.
Yeah.
Right. All like you have to be really on it to be able to control all that at 150 miles an hour.
I was telling somebody else that the other day, like the amount of shit you have to do like when you're racing, when like they have to do when they're racing, right? Like they're adjusting brake distribution, right? Like 60-40 or 50-50. And then they're like, the most I'll do when I'm playing the game, I'll adjust my tranny knob a little bit so that I can make it tighter in some of the corners.
Like,
but
I just make sure I can.
Yeah, like I'm just trying to drive the damn
on
thing.
The brake enough.
So these guys are switching modes. They're doing different things. They're charging the battery, not charging the battery, and I'm like,
they're calling people out on track limits.
Yeah, I'm like, holy shit, dude! Like you guys got so many. You have so many knobs on there.
It's almost like they mentally have to be so quick and on everything to be able to.
And like through certain sections, like you're like, okay, it's an S corner. You think, oh, I'm not touching this other than the shifters. It's like I think I've seen them like be turning, like reaching over, grabbing something. I'm like, holy shit, like
doing like looking them like, how?
Yeah, so
200 miles an hour. It's wild.
This whole second half of the show turned into talking about Lewis, and because we talked about McLaren, because that's where he came from.
You're a Lewis fanboy in secret.
Like I said, I will respect him respectfully. Respectfully disrespect him at the same time. But McLaren will. I'm looking forward to seeing that livery, and they're McLaren's out of England, yeah. So that'll be their home race. So that's probably obviously why they're doing.
Yeah, I think they are British. Yeah, they're British.
So that'll be cool. I think Lando hopefully keeps the train rolling with some better car development. I would be stoked to see Lando get a win this year. And
that would be nice.
As much as I can't stand Zach Brown at this point because he really did. I think he did, and we talked about this in the previous shows. I think he did Daniel dirty. And then I also think he's kind of paying for it too. Like you fucked around and you found out.
Totally. And I mean, they paid out the ass for fucking Piastri, right? Like I think they paid the fines and stuff for him to leave Alpine and
then you
went that stuff. And
your really results are just as bad, if not worse, by not having. They've had one top 10 combined,
maybe, yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't
as bad as Alfa Romeo or Alpha Tauri, but
Alfa Romeo. Alfa Romeo started good, and then now they're kind of shitty again.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Like,
I don't know, it's car development because that team's supposed to change too, right? So are they just like out on the?
They're going to be Audi.
Yeah, they're going to be Audi, so they're just out on development too, which is stupid for you to do that. You're literally changing logos. That's all you're doing. Unless like they're firing everybody, so the team's like, fuck it, like whatever.
Well, so I think the team principal now is the one that's overseeing the takeover and is going to be the team principal for Audi.
Because wasn't that a Ferrari guy? Old Ferrari guy?
Pretty sure Benito, right?
No, not Benito. A different, like he was like a lower guy, like an advisor or something, or like an engineer, and so he went there. And then they took, and what's his face got a promotion to Ferrari because Alfa Romeo is a Ferrari-based motor, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I think. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, all those lower teams, you're probably not going to see shit happen until when they make that transition, if they become competitive again. But they'll probably always be those lower teams. Maybe we'll see some shit happen when Cadillac and the Andretti's come in. And is Ford's doing transmissions for Red Bull now? Are they doing anything else? Are they going motors eventually?
I think the goal is to be motors.
Yeah. Which I think which I mean, it's a totally, we talk shit about Ford versus Chevy and all that. And Fords are a piece of shit or whatever. But at that level, there's so much
American thing.
Yeah, no, it's an American thing. It's like if you want to buy a truck here, you buy a Toyota. But I think when you're spending that much money, it's just a matter of you get a bad batch of metal. And I think maybe that's what happened last year when Ferrari was just grenading everything. Yeah. And it's like maybe they just got a bad batch of materials, and it is what it is because they obviously haven't had any crazy malfunctions.
That's interesting to talk about that too, because that was kind of an element I never even really thought about, was all of the manufacturing like that we saw right through the pandemic and things, and like there was like no chips, right? So like I wonder if they ran into some development issues because of just like materials being less. Or are they just so far beyond like the consumer market that they can get their hands on anything?
Yeah, money talks, so they could just cut the line on everybody. Maybe they're the problem why we had a microchip shortage here.
I mean, they're developing, 2 cars. It's not like they're like
but they're taking over the whole freaking plant. So I'm curious. I think a lot of their stuff's probably specialty though.
I would think.
So I don't know. I mean, as much as I don't like McLaren, I like Lando. So that's like the only thing I obviously root for when it comes to that. Yeah. I want to see Lando do well. I give a shit about Piastri. De Vries, I was pretty hopeful for, and he's just shitting the bed. And I don't know if I think that's a combination of the car, because obviously he knows how to drive. Like he drove well last year, but was that car that much closer than this car? Like, is that far off? I don't know. Like in the Haas team, like they're doing well. The thing I would think that's going to help Haas the most is A, they're getting way more points than they ever have. And B,
I think that even like K-Meg is showing a whole different level of maturity that he's racing now than when he was racing with
the first batch
Roman Grosjean.
Yeah.
You know, like I think they were battling a lot trying to be the bigger man. And, you know, I think sometimes when you're out of the sport for a year or two and you get that second opportunity where like, I don't want to fucking squander this away.
Right.
And I think it matures you a little bit more as to, all right, how can I maintain the longevity?
And that might be
kind
the
of
same
play
thing
that team game.
with Daniel when he comes back. Maybe you'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe, I hope we see that in his driving too, right? Like maybe he's just like, okay, like I don't need to fight Max right now, or whomever, like my rival. It could be Yuki, it could be Max, it could be whomever. What were we talking about? We were talking about, oh yeah, squandering the moment. So yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, too, Haas though, I think when it comes down to it, maybe they get more funding for car development. Maybe it makes them more competitive because now they're consistently getting TV time. They're getting that advertising.
Yeah, they're
time,
doing way better.
and they're doing way better, and then they're going to get that funding from the F1, the FIA. So I'm curious to see what that does for them or doesn't do for them, right? Like, well, and the same thing with Williams. I mean, maybe AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo drop to the bottom and they move up in the ranks of like top tier teams, and then maybe you see some of those heavy hitter young kids that come up and they get there and they can actually make the car work.
Well, so another thing about Haas too, and I haven't read any updates, but remember when like something was going down with Gene Haas and like taxes or something, and potentially he was going to have to sell the team or something like that. I don't know whatever ended up happening with any of that, but like, well, that could be a whole new kind of wrench thrown in. Or maybe
I thought they were talking about I thought it was maybe potentially talking about like the Andretti's buying it because of like he can't pay it or something like that. I don't know. I thought I saw a rumor about that too, but I think somebody was just pissed off at Haas and got political or some shit. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, and I think at that level, when you have that much money, you have a NASCAR team, you have an F1 team. Both of those are not cheap, and you have those teams, and you're making that much money. You're making like fuck you money. Like, I don't care who you are. You could be a saint. You could be the devil. You could be whatever your political view is.
Dig up shit on you. Right?
They're trying to dig up shit, and you're gonna find ways to like get around. Okay, like I could pay $1 million in taxes, or I could pay $500,000 in taxes. You're gonna take a gamble on that, and then maybe that was 20 years ago. He's like, oh yeah, you gambled on your taxes. Like, yeah, give me the fine. What are you gonna do? Send me to jail? And that's everybody, right? Like anybody making that money, whether you're Bezos, Elon Musk, whatever. I would bet money that all these guys are doing some form of unethical tax bullshit. And if you wanted to bring it up, philanthropy. Like if you wanted to bring it up, you could find shit on anybody, and it's just like you're in a whole new bracket of like money. Like, and I think that too, just like how I've progressed through the years in my financial state, and I don't make good money at all compared to these people we talk about. But it's like you think of like, oh shit, like okay, like you see this, why is he doing that? Like, but it's just because you have that much money, you're just like fuck it, or you do it for a reason. At that level, you're doing it for a reason.
Like owning my own businesses, I understand there's a lot of loopholes in taxes that you can get away with because you own your own business, right? So like you're getting all of your taxes based off of your company, but your company's getting a lot of breaks that you don't understand.
Yes.
And don't even see, right? And so, and it's like, well, if that's the laws, why not exploit them, right? Just like all the race cars are like, okay, well, this is the gray area, and I'm going to exploit it until we get called on it. And
if side pods were illegal, then it's like, okay, we're going to make some type of, I guarantee you, if they make side pods illegal next year, some team is going to figure out a way to make a non-side pod side pod.
Right.
Oh man, it's not a side pod, it's a beneath pod, and it comes up from the floor.
Yeah, like, oh well, it's developed this one way, so that makes the whole like,
and then
different.
They'll win 2 titles, and everybody's going to dominate, and they're like, well, you did something wrong.
You can't do this anymore.
And then that's the same thing that happened. I mean, whether it's cost cap with Red Bull, like whatever. Once you get to that financial state, I think you think a lot.
Well, and when you're
operate differently,
when you're in the lead, all the crosshairs are on you.
Yeah.
Right. They're looking at every single thing that they can call you on, and that's every team across the board now is looking at you.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so you're trying to be innovative and ahead of the rules, and then somebody's like, well, that's cheating. Like,
Is it
well,
cheating,
we're
or
just
are you just mad?
yeah,
that you
like
didn't think of it
you're mad
first?
that you guys didn't develop that,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, that's what I think about with Mercedes and their DAS system.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, what a really cool like engineering feat that but
For
nobody
sure.
else could figure out how to do it.
Right.
And so then they had to get it banned because it's, and like,
because if they hadn't got it banned, would they still be using that today?
oh, 100%, dude. Like, I mean, following Mercedes, but then being able to see, that was when I was nerding out really on Mercedes, like before we started this channel, and
Still nerding, but yes.
But like I followed a lot of their stuff and got
Right.
to like they had a whole section based off of like this is our technology and this is how we use stuff and this is what and so being able to kind of see how those things worked was like, whoa, wicked. Like nobody else could engineer that.
I think what's different too, and I think we probably end on this, right? Like, say it's a motorcycle or a car, like a production thing, right? Red Bull couldn't figure out or any team, right, for that matter, couldn't figure out how to like replicate the DOS system. So it's like, if you see a car or a motorcycle and you want to know what's going on, you just go to the dealership and buy one.
Yeah,
use it
apart,
use it as
right?
tax write-off, or like research and development, and you're just going to tear it all apart. You're like, oh, that's what they did when they put the motor this way or the piston this way or the shock this way.
Yeah.
You can't do that in F1. You can't just go buy their F1 car.
Yeah, I mean, you can't see anything, right? I mean, that's why also I watched something, I think after the Monaco race. So anytime a car crashes and they pick it up with the crane, everybody, like all these photographers are trying to get high resolution photos of the underground because teams will pay a lot of money for them.
Got it.
Because they can look and see, because that's, I would say, arguably the floor is maybe the most important part as far as aerodynamics go, and everything kind of builds from the ground up.
Right.
And so if they can see the different little like tracking and different like wind tunnels that are underneath the car, they can start to figure out what they're doing.
Shit, dude, I'll go take some iPhone 17 pictures of the car. Like I'll just happen to be there when they and I'm just gonna start slinging them to Red Bull, Mercedes, all of them. Like, hey guys,
now our channel's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really interesting.
Exploitation. Explosion, exploit. What is that word? Exploiting.
Yeah, I think
expulsion.
No, it's oh God, what is it?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like exploiting, but
can we do that to people?
There's another legal term for it.
Maybe that's illegal to talk about this on the live stream, but Silverstone next weekend.
Yep. God, well, this weekend, I guess, coming up. It's Monday.
I forgot. My days are almost. I've been off for like 4 days, so it's great.
Yeah, I mean, here in America, we're celebrating
4th of July tomorrow.
4th of July. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, it is tomorrow.
Yeah.
So things are a little bit slower. But Silverstone this weekend, so definitely be up to date on the channel. Smash that like, subscribe, all that stuff, so you get the notifications.
Shoot us a DM, PM, text message, whatever you want. Get yourself a shirt.
Yeah, get some swag. Start repping.
And thanks for the support. We'll talk to you guys
later.
Appreciate
you guys. Later.
I was gonna look something up. Oh.